So I last Sunday I was meant to have a magic gig at a international ghost tour, which is a tourist thing. But they postponed it a week ago. And Saturday around about 5 o'clock or something, I got a phone call from somebody who wanted to hire me on the spur of the moment for a kids' party on Sunday at 3:30. So I said, yeah, I do kids' parties, but I said I didn't actually do tricks for kids like pulling rabbits out of hats or doing balloons. I said that the things more like tearing a piece of paper in lots of bits and then having it reform itself, or cutting a rope and having it repair itself, or things like plucking a bubble out of the air and putting it back in the bottle. Which normally if you touch a bubble they burst, but so usually that's fine. But yeah, that's my box of illusions. I'm not sure if I showed you that the first time. Various it's a wand, piece of rope. I don't want to show too much because it would give things away, but that's a can of Coke, that's a tissue roll, but that's my box of illusions. So yeah, anyway, I went along the next day. She told me which buses to get as I was trying to look them up. She seemed friendly and accommodating and warmish on phone call. I think her name was Pauline or something. Anyway, when I got there, I had a vision of having a reception, having the person answer the doorbell. I could have done a trick on the spot, having a warm welcome, maybe even being offered food or something, a drink. Kids everywhere. That is not what happened at all. I got there and there were people, but nobody had the faintest clue who it was. I spoke to a few adults, to a couple of adults, said there was Magic Houston had come for a gig and they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. Eventually I said to somebody called Pauline, somebody phoned me last night about me coming, and she said, oh, go and talk to the woman over there in the corner, she's organised it. I didn't know who she was pointing to. There was about 5 adults in the corner, and there was 3 ladies, and I didn't know who she was talking to about. So eventually I was able to work out who she was, or somebody told me. And it turned out she was a woman holding a baby, and she told me the baby was a niece. I didn't really understand that. Unless she was just holding a niece while the mother was somewhere else. Anyway, in person she wasn't very warm. She certainly wasn't very friendly. She sat there and didn't really do much. She told me, put bag in the back if you want. I wasn't sure where to put it. She said you could stand in the centre and all the kids will gather around you. There was a few kids there, but I asked her if she could pay me in advance now when I got there, and she said no, we'll pay you afterwards. That made me lose confidence because family has said make sure you get the money, ideally in advance. Otherwise you have a fear people are going to run off and do a runner or make excuses not pay you, and that's what ended up happening. I've been paid for the gig that was cancelled, but it may boost my confidence when that happens because you know people are being serious. Even in my tutoring work, I don't think I've ever had a parent not pay. Some people haven't paid when they haven't turned up, but sometimes people have paid the following week, which I hated, because you had a fear they wouldn't come back. Sometimes people have run to get money, but they left a bag or a coat, so you trusted they were going to come back. But I hate it. It's also just the fact you want to get the money in your pocket. You work hard for an hour with someone, you just want the money. You don't want them to wait a delay but anyway, I was afraid. I've had some people not turn up, and most people don't pay, but some people do. Some people just don't turn up. Anyway, that made me lose confidence. I didn't trust her. I was worried something would go wrong. Anyway, I came to the illusions. I took out a piece of tissue paper and got a long rope, and the kids all eventually were called in. There was music blaring. There weren't many kids there. They said all the kids are outside, so they got them all in. There was about 15 kids. They turned the music off. I did the tissue trick, which went okay. It was slightly messed up at one point, but I tried to keep going. Somebody told me Paul Daniels always said have a plan with things go wrong. So good that everybody makes mistakes. You just got to have a plan when things you make a mistake. That went okay. Didn't really say much. Then I did this long rope trick, which wasn't really an illusion, but it was about it's a boat, a sailor's rope thing. You can put lots of knots into rope, and when you pull one end, they all come unraveled again. It's sort of like a trick. It's not actually magic, but it's a trick. But they did it, and they didn't seem to care. I just did it for a laugh. I thought it'd be fun, but a long piece of red rope. Anyway, I said I need to go and get more tricks. What had happened? So I went and got a magic wand, a newspaper, and a pair of scissors, I think, and a long piece of rope to do the rope cutting trick. And went back out, and the adult said to me, "This isn't working. There's a bus up there." And I said, "You want me to go?" He said, "Yeah." One of them said, "Who told you you're a magician?" What do you mean? They took the piss out of the fact that the newspaper had got off a bus. Well, I know 2 tricks with newspapers. One I got from Port Daniels, and one I got from a book I read as a child. You can do illusions with anything, pretty much. It's about making it believable and entertaining people, and making it work, and how it's performed. You can do a trick with anything, I think, just pretty much. They just took the piss out of me having a newspaper, and they were being rude. The woman, she refused to pay me a penny. I knew that would happen. Then I went back to the kitchen where my box was, my bag was, and packed it up in a rather upset state, and mulled over what had happened, and stood for a minute or two just to be on my own. She came in saying, "Why are you still here?" And I said, "Well, I'm upset. All performers have bad days." She seemed surprised I said that. It turned out she thought I was an expert. I said, my poster says I'm a beginner, up and coming, not expert. She then said, "Oh, I've not actually seen your poster. I was just giving you a number." Well, that explains a bit, and that's her fault. Her friend should have told me the friend should have said what the poster said, which is I'm a beginner. I'm not an experienced wizard like Paul Daniels or David Copperfield. Even Magic Circle, they're in the Magic Circle. Even Magic Circle members, which are more numerous, are very experienced. I said I'm a beginner. If I was Magic Circle level, if I was a Magic Circle member, I'd have written on the poster I'm Magic Circle, because everybody's heard of the Magic Circle. And in the Magic Circle is never more than 300 people, like Paul Daniels, probably David Blaine, David Copperfield, and others. That they're the world's most gifted elite magicians. Anyway, she threatened to call the police if I didn't go. I wasn't actually refusing to go. I was just packing up in an upset state rather slowly. It was miserable, and I walked out, spoke to one lady, told her they refused to pay me a penny. All the adults were just slagging me off. I think I'd spoken to a little boy before then, who said he gave me 4 out of 5 for my tissue paper trick, so he obviously liked it. But I said the adults are just slagging me off. And then the woman who hired me came out. I thought she was going to give me money, but she went outside of a fag, and I said, "Are you wanting to talk to me?" She said, "No, I'm just having a fag." And she said, "Please leave, I'll call the police." I said to her, "This is not a police issue, it's a civil issue." Twice she threatened to call the police. I was leaving. I was just leaving slowly because I was upset, and I suppose I was talking to odd people on the way out just to sort of get a bit of feedback and just ask them how I thought it was, and then some bloke walked up and asked us what was going on, and I said nothing, so I basically headed off. I think I told him this isn't a police issue, it's a civil issue. My tutoring mentor, it was really horrible. My mistakes were not having the box of tricks with me, and I'm not doing kids again. Most of my tricks are aimed at older people. I don't have tricks set up for kids like pulling rabbits out of hats or pulling budgerigars out your sleeves. I'm not going to do stuff. I'm not going to do kids. I think it's when it's my daughter and her friends, it's different. But when it's... I'm not going to do kids. I've spoken to one of my sisters who does music performances, and she's agreed, don't do kids. And even she's had bad days. All teachers, all performers, all doctors and nurses all have bad days when they meet patients that are upset or are rude. So when you work with the public, you meet rudeness all the time. I've met plenty of rude students, parents, mainly parents, but sometimes difficult kids to me tutoring. There were a minority, but I don't know what percentage. Perhaps 5-10% is rude, difficult. Most people you get on with, some people you don't. It's everybody who works in the public encounters this. So it's not unique to me, but anyway, I phoned her. My mentor said ask her to pay you or say you'll take it to small claims court. So I phoned her for a message. She said you blocked me, but I used the code. Then I got text messages back the next day saying, a few hours later, saying you used a horrible piece of tissue in an old newspaper. It wasn't. It was a piece of new tissue off a toilet roll. And what's wrong with using a newspaper? I'm not going to. She's threatened to call the police if I contact her again or badmouth me on social media, but I'm not going to. What's wrong? I know, as I said, I know 2 illusions using newspapers. One is I got from Paul Daniels, and one I learned as a child out of a book. You can use anything for magic. Just because I have a newspaper doesn't mean it's not going to be magic. Anyway, she slagged me off. I told her one kid gave me 4 out of 5, so he liked me. She just accused me of being... Her mistakes were not knowing I was either forgetting me telling her down the phone I was a startup magician, or not knowing that. I'm sure I must have told her. Not telling, another mistake, not telling her friends and family that I was coming. Her not telling the kids I wasn't going to do Pacific magic for kids, which would have helped if they'd actually complained about that, I don't know. And refusing to pay me anything. I think they could at least give you half the fee in advance. It's just confidence. You're going to get paid. So at least if things go wrong, you walk away with something. Because I didn't do a bad job. Slightly bummed up the tissue one, but I kind of tried to improvise, and I certainly wasn't rubbish. Didn't want to. It's in front of my father last week, and he criticised. So I stood in front of a mirror, practiced a bit more, and modified the way I do it, and then so it was better. Then performed in front of some strangers a few days later, and they were impressed. So it was just horrible. Slag me off. I'm not doing kids anymore, and I'm going to keep Magic Box near me, but she was certainly at fault in this. Anyway, you just have to shrug it off. And anyway, by the way, my box of magic tricks is that. So you got a wand and rope and stuff, okay? Various things. These envelopes are tricks in them. So yeah, you got various illusions there. That's my box. Is that in focus? I hope it's in focus. Is it in focus? Yeah, my box of various illusions, okay? Right, so so anyway, thanks for listening. Yeah, at the moment I'm trying to take it to small claims court because I could do with £100, although the court seems very difficult to contact. Anyway, cheers.